Oh, I totally thought I turned my volume off on my phone. Sorry. Alright, so I had somebody request. No, request isn't totally the right word. Whatever. About trauma. So trauma's a big one for everyone, in my opinion. I feel like we all experience it differently and we all handle it differently and it shapes us all differently, which isn't a bad thing, in my opinion. If, as a person, you can accept that you have this trauma and you're not ashamed of it. And that's the hardest thing that I've ever had to do, at least. I don't know about anyone else, but most people that I've ever talked to, if they are aware of their trauma responses and the things that have caused these trauma responses to be a part of you, it's really hard to admit that we're the ones doing it. Like, other people in other situations may have been triggering points and negative aspects of what has ultimately caused the trauma. But our choice to hold on to it and not forgive and learn from those experiences and how we choose to react, that's on us. 100. I seriously thought I turned my volume off.
What about an example? What would be a good example of like a trauma response and
Trauma response example. We're the ones doing it. I need to hold on. Do other things. People.
What about tickling? That's nice and easy. That's
yeah,
an easy, simple thing. It's not really verbal. It's just kind of something that's fun, but
yeah, tickling's a good one. We'll go with tickling trauma response. I love to tickle people all the time. I'm great at it. I can find people's ticklish spots really easily. And I'm dating Bruce. And so part of me dating you is I'm going to randomly tickle you. And one day I was tickling him, which in and on its own apparently is not super common to find his ticklish spots. And he usually doesn't respond. Like it doesn't, except for with his mother. His mother can tickle him, and I'm not going to give away the secret. But I was able to tickle him way before that, and before I even knew of said thing. And sorry, I'm trying to get this shared. Anywho, so we were over at his parents' house one day, and I started tickling him, and his mom was absolutely amazed at the fact that I was able to tickle him, and she didn't have to tell me how. And it kind of became this fun thing in my mind because he's giggling and she's amused, and I didn't understand why it was such a thing that I was able to tickle him because we hadn't talked about it. And granted, I think at that point we'd only been together like a week. Like hanging out like a week.
I don't remember how long it was, but you both teamed up on me.
Yeah.
To a point where I was laughing so much I couldn't tap out. So I was past the point where it was fun and it was just freaking me out now for some reason. It just kind of it put me in this headspace of helplessness. Like the same kind of feeling of when I want to get out of this situation. Please, what can I do? There's nothing I can do, and then being trapped there, being trapped and helpless in a state where like it's pretty much just overstimulation is all it is there. It's just like it's too much. I can't handle it. Please stop. But I was laughing so much I couldn't make it stop. So
he couldn't formulate the words into this is causing a reaction that I'm not really quite sure what's going on. And
panic attack.
thankfully I picked up on something being off with him and stopped and came up and just kind of snuggled up on him and was holding him, and it was kind of a big part of us connecting on such a level. But that trauma response was created from a time that he was in a really bad place. And it had nothing to do with actually being tickled. It was just feeling completely vulnerable and stuck
It's
and
knowing,
pinned down.
yeah, it's knowing where the line is. It's it's usually about like 5 seconds. You gotta stop at that point, or just you learn to feel where the boundary line is, and that's what really like I could see that you were able to see that
I feel like you need to see him to talk to him.
yeah, I guess that makes more sense. But yeah, like I could see that you noticed you were able to process what happened, and it wasn't really this thing. I wasn't really put on a spot, and we wound up talking about it later just because I really like to immerse myself in an emotion and dissect it into words. So that was an interesting time where I was actually able to like share with you, like, thank you for actually watching my body language and being able to tell that, hey, I'm not having fun anymore, please stop. Like that thing, you can see it because it's visible. Even though you're not trying to put it out there, your body language will translate what's going on. And so that's like a really good building block for trust, is just knowing that you're not going to like torture me. And if it is like, we could, it turns into a game at that point where you can just, and then have what you will with it, but it only works if you trust the person, because otherwise you're just going to be afraid. It's going to turn into that. As soon as you go to reach, it's just going to like jump. It's like jumpy because it makes you.
I hope you saw my dog's reactions. They all jumped.
They all get startled because it's
Hero.
it's contagious. It's contagious when someone reacts that way. Like you can very clearly see. Holy crap! Wait, what? Are you okay? You okay? That's what he's asking right now. I'm good. I'm okay. No.
And being able to recognize that, like I said, he and I had only been hanging out for maybe a week at this point. We were still pretty fresh in getting to know one another. And in all actuality, we laid a lot of our trauma responses that we were aware of the very first day we met. So I knew a lot of his back history, and so for me it was easy for me to recognize those things. But being able to do that is accepting that you have those and realizing that while they may seem completely earth-shattering brokenness with yourself, you're not broken. You're human. And we all have different traumas, different stories, different responses, different learning patterns. And that's ultimately what I want this page for. I don't want us to forget that every single person on this earth is going through something, has gone through something, and we can't understand it if we don't want to listen.
Even if they've lived the perfect life, it doesn't matter. Like you can have the best life and everything is given to you, and you don't really have too many struggles. And like from an outside perspective, someone might look at that and be like, "Oh yeah, must be nice," but like honestly, you don't know what's going on inside their head. They could be dealing with some really, really difficult issues on just like not amounting to enough because, yeah, okay, everything was given to me. That's because my family has done so well. That means that there's this invisible expectation. Even if the parents or family doesn't say, hey, when you grow up, you have to be a doctor or you have to be successful or make X amount of money or whatever. If they don't say it, if everyone in the family is doing really, really well, you kind of just have this like feeling like there's kind of a tendency in your upbringing to just be drawn towards what your family does unless you are really passionate and you have like your own individuality
and you're not afraid to stand up to what you believe is right for you. And some of you have known me for years, and I don't know if you've taken the time to go read the post that I've shared about some of my trauma and some of the things that I fight on a daily basis, and that's that I have multiple personalities. I'm a 12-sided die, and for the longest time, actually, let's be real, even still now, I believe parts of me are jagged and sharp, and they cause pain, and it's rough.
Every time she starts talking about the multiple personalities, every time the way that she describes it sounds so familiar, just like a different way of describing like the way that I think, because depending on the situation, what side of the bed I woke up on or what's going on in my life, I might be given the same exact situation and I could react in a variety of ways just based on how I'm feeling. And even if I choose to react one of those ways, I still heard like a bunch of different options to choose from. Like, wait a minute, should I be pissed about this? Hang on, let's think about this. And it's kind of like a like the inner dialogue. There's just this conversation going on in your head with who? All the different perspectives. You could very easily describe that as multiple personalities if you got to know each perspective individually. Then, but I've also read something about like the comparisons on way people think and everything, and some people say that they actually don't hear voices at all, and I thought that they were the minority in that research. Like most people kind of hear and have an inner dialogue, but some people don't. But that inner dialogue, it's usually not one-sided. You can't have a dialogue implies that there's more than one person. So if you're having a dialogue, then there's more than one person talking in your head. It's not a monologue, not an inner monologue. Some people probably have inner monologue as well, but like, hell, there's just based off of, like I said, how I'm feeling or what's going on or your surroundings. Like, there's an infinite way to react to anything. So, like, if you react differently each way, wouldn't that be like a different personality? It really doesn't sound like anything crazy. It just sounds like a different description of what goes on.
Different perception, different reactions. And like I said at the beginning of this, a different trauma response. I've had different trauma than Bruce and vice versa, and every single one of you. Like, and realizing that is really what's going to bring us all together, because judgment is the worst thing we can do, in my opinion. And I vote you sit over here so I don't have to keep turning the damn computer.
I already sat down.
Well,
maybe next time.
Whatever. So, for me, it's taken a lot to realize that. And in reality, it's only been in the past few years that I've been able to talk about this openly, much less go on a live video on Facebook and share it with all of you. And also then go post it on YouTube later. And I still to this day have a difficult time. The whole family is joining us now. Anyways, so I have a difficult time admitting this because for years I've convinced myself that I'm crazy because a lot of society sees that as crazy, like, but it's not. If we really think about it, like Bruce was saying, and break it down and really just look at things.
Instead of just looking at the surface and saying, oh, that looks like this, I'm going to make the assumption that I already completely understand what that is without asking to see if it's different. Like, in my eyes, that's the same thing as saying, like, oh, your name is Jeffrey?
Oh, no.
I met a Jeffrey, so I know everything about you. Like, I know another Jeffrey, so you must be just like him, right? Like, no, it is not that cut and dry. People are not that. They're so much more unique. If somebody is diagnosed, like, nobody's depression is going to be the same. Two people's depression, nobody's bipolar is going to be the same. Everything is going to have, like, a different variation. Like, maybe they feel depressed 10% of the time, 20% of the time, 30%. Like, it doesn't. Everyone is just so radically different. So, like, just to say, like, oh, you have depression, oh, you have multiple personality disorder, you're schizophrenic, you're autistic, whatever, like,
You're an
oh,
addict. You're a felon.
I get it. Oh, yeah, those are great. Yeah, I met a felon before. I met an addict before. I know everything about, like, no idea. Like, hey, I've been, like, killing myself to be better for the last 6 years. I haven't been, like, just repeating bad behavior over and over and over again.
And that's the other thing that I believe society forgets too is people can change. We can choose to change all the time.
Even with these disorders, I've seen it. I mean, there's a certain point where you wind up getting taken off of your prescriptions. You wind up going to therapists and all this stuff. And what do you do with the therapist? You talk about it. You break it down. You admit it. You acknowledge it. That's essentially all it is. So I guess, what are we trying to do? Just promote, like, life therapy, like, in everyday conversation?
I'm not promoting anything. I'm just, I don't know. Yazi, that's exactly it. Like, it says it to the point. There's a different depth to reality for everybody. Reaction is based on experience. Like I said, perception for everyone is completely different. Tickling is a prime example. I think it's funny and cute, and him squirming and trying to get away from me, just, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
I love that she wants to play with me like that. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. I don't object to it, and I start it half the damn time. But it's just that line. I know that she has a history with certain things. She has certain traumas, and there's certain things that I would never do to her, even if it's, something silly, just because it doesn't matter, Maybe if I, gosh, freaking pick anything, a mug, maybe a blue mug. She doesn't have any blue mugs in the house because this one time this thing happened with a blue mug, and when she sees it, the memory comes back alive. Like,
bananas, okay? Bananas are a prime example for me. I have a really, really disgusting taste for bananas. If I can taste banana, you can see it on my face. I'm disgusted. I feel sick. I freak out. It's a thing, and I try and work on it and everything else, but it's not like he's throwing it in my face either. But if I do want to get past it, we work through it. But if it's something that my trigger is so intense and so severe that I break down and cannot face that reality, he's not going to purposely try and push me, ever.
one thing that I do like to do, though, is just every once in a while, if I am going to push one of your boundaries in order to help you get past something that we both know you want to get past, I'll do it, but I'll lock eyes with you, so that way you're not just processing and hearing it and going back to that place. You're right here now with me, and you very clearly see I'm just messing with you, getting you some exposure to this trigger response so that way you can heal from it in a healthy way, because yes, you have a bad experience with whatever this thing is,
Bananas.
but hey, here it is, and it's not a bad thing,
I
and I'm not
got
going to hurt you
you.
with it.
And that's our thing. And it should be that way with everyone. Not just your partner or your friend or your coworkers or your family. I know. I already loved the comment, Yazi. You know, you got me. I got you. But being that way with everyone, just for the simplicity of humanity and compassion and love for everyone, even the people that have hurt you, even the people that have caused you that trauma.
Oh man, I just had a phone call just yesterday. I went I go to prison for a year and a half, get out, and everything I own is gone. We basically had to rob my own truck back from this person, and I just bought $1,000 flat screen TV. Didn't make a single payment on it. Had it on a payment plan. Took it. She took it. She took everything I owned, and then can't get a hold of her. Anything like that. I was really bitter. It took me a really long time to really get over that, but something came up. It was got a phone call about the debt collection or whatever, and just made me think to hey, maybe give her a call, maybe she'll pick up now, with no bitterness. Just left a message, just like, hey, I know things have been bad, but like, love to talk to you. But with the bitterness out, like, you can hear it. I can hear it in my own voice, just even thinking about it. It's just like, yeah, that was really bad, and it was like thousands of dollars in my entire life and memories and all this stuff, but I'm here now.
Now is where it's at.
Yep.
And he shoves that down my throat a lot because it's just something that I have a hard time with. And another post that's getting a lot of attention on this page is the one about if your ex was on the side of edge of a building or something,
Oh, that one's
threatening to
making me
jump.
sad.
It's breaking my heart. And I get people do you wrong. It happens a lot. I've experienced it. He's experienced it. You've all experienced it. Every single person has experienced heartbreak on some degree.
Oh yeah.
But that is still a person. Like,
What I don't see anybody talking about there, they're like, just like, oh yeah, take your, or do a flip, take the, like, yeah. Don't get me wrong, they're funny, and I joke about death all the time, but like, that's really not the perspective and the topic that we're going for. In this, we're going more for the fact that, like, hey, think about that person. They also probably have siblings. They have parents, maybe grandparents, maybe even children of their own. Like, don't just think of, like, yeah,
your children.
That one thing that they pissed me off, so yeah, they should die. Okay, well, don't just stop there. Follow it. What happens after they die? You know what I mean? Oh, their parents have to carry their freaking casket and bury their child. Like, take it to that level. What would you say to them to, like, keep from that pain?
Yeah,
that
stop.
pain that basically just lives in you because you're upset of how they did you wrong. And I've been done wrong. And I've been there, and I've had the thought processes, and that's, it's not wrong. It's natural to feel that way. But you have to.
Anger and resentment are natural feelings. They're normal. And in a lot of the ways, they do protect us because in the future, we can look for things that are common and be aware of that. But we also need to respect that other person that we're interacting with and ask them and be real and just be like, hey, this is making me have this reaction. It's painful. It's scary. Oh my God, it's scary. But being honest about your trauma and your responses and your past and taking responsibility will make you the strongest you have ever been in your life.
Not to mention, at a certain point, you're just prolonging the suffering. And not only that, but you're also spreading it, because if you throw that back out there, it's pretty much like you get an equal reaction most of the time, and they're going to start hating on you. And then people just see this toxic relationship, two people talking disrespectfully, like, oh, you should just kill yourself. Like, then they might jump on the bandwagon, and now you have like more people just being angry the majority of the time and thinking the negative things about people, instead of like, when you look at somebody, gosh, I might look at somebody and have the thought of like, wow, they really remind me of this person that like freaking attacked me in prison or something like that. So am I going to freak out, or am I going to then be like, okay, let's pull out of this. Where are we? What's going on? Oh, wait a minute. That's just like, someone working at the grocery store or something. Like, pull your head out of the judgment. That's just a reflex based off of your history and the memories that you have. Don't view it through some kind of filter of the past. View your situation through what's going on now. And if you react in a negative way and just like kind of promote that hurt, just like, yeah, go ahead, jump, then it's going to come back at you. And then what are you going to do? You're going to turn around and say, the world hates me, everyone's out to get me? Probably. That seems to be a cycle that people tend to have, but it's all your own outlook. If you start seeing the good in people, then you start seeing the good in yourself, and people start seeing it in you, and then everything just turns around.
Thanks, Kelsey. Not me. One in the comments. What are some of the things that you guys feel are harder to let go of, or ways that you let go of things? Like, for me, like I said, recently, it's only been the past couple of years that I've been honest with myself and everyone about my feelings and being really true to the deepest core. And it's only been the past, I'm going to say, year that I've really been able to make these substantial changes. And so these are some of the ways that I handle and that I cope and accept things. And he's been a huge help. His mouth can speak gold sometimes. And my dogs, I mean, this one's Nero. He's my oldest, and he was with me in a very severe rollover that, I mean, should have killed me. And he was there, and so he's a big, anchor for me in that sense.
He's got a lot of PTSD too, let me tell you. Anytime he hears a car engine just right, sees something, gets tense, and then not only that, once the aggression settles, it turns into panic. He'll come over and start crying. Whining.
And then we've got Riker. Paranoid. Riker is the snuggle bud and loves everyone and everything in the world. And he was born the day before my rollover. And I believe wholeheartedly that my son was watching over me that day. And so when I found out that Riker was born the day before, and I had this strange attachment to him, I ended up getting him and named him after, in memory of my son, I should say. I named him Riker instead of Ryder. And then there's Poe. He's my littlest one, and he is
right here,
without a doubt, the one that kind of sneaks in, and no matter how shut down I am or anything of the sort, he sneaks his way in and won't leave my side. He's a big mama's boy, and I usually am not a big fan of little dogs, but I curl in when I start to have my trauma responses, and he can just weasel his way in and help pull me out of it. So, and writing is another huge one. There was a lady that I had a conversation with on the page a few days ago that we talked about gratitude lists and just writing the things that we're thankful for, especially in these hard times where everyone's having a difficult time. Everyone is going through something substantial in their lives. And I don't even want to get into that right now. But the point being that these things are very forefront and very in everyone's mind. And I don't know. I'm interested to see other people's perspectives, because I know my perspective, I know my thoughts, I know how I handle things and how I don't handle things. And
if we just go around assuming that we all think the same way, then eventually we're going to stop thinking on our own. We need to actually be like, hey, like, I noticed that you made a different face than I made when this same exact thing happened. Like, why did you feel that way? Get to know the other feelings, the other reactions, and it makes it a lot easier to not feel so separate from everything. I suffered from that so bad my entire life, especially when I was just like those teenage years in high school. I felt like no one understood me. My family doesn't get me,
I'm a
all of
black
that,
sheep.
all that typical crap. And that was me. I was the skater. I spent 12 hours a day on average at the skate park. And that was just my entire life, because that was the only place I felt like I was at home. Even when I was at home, I felt like I wanted different things out of life than everyone in my household. And I couldn't I didn't have a car. I didn't have motivation. I was just like bitter and resentful because like nobody gets me. What's the point? A little bit of depression, suicide, epilepsy, all kinds of stuff. I was all kinds of messed up. And just being able to go from that extreme to actually really being able to understand what different people want out of life, and actually seeing like all the different options, and going, gosh, freaking 3 years in prison. It's like so much. Just read all these books and like read a bunch of different religions and just really get this perspective on how you don't have to be subject to just like one line of thought. There's so many different options. Whatever you heard in your head, there's probably someone that wrote a book about it already. Like, you don't need to feel alone in any sense, no matter what you're thinking. If you're in a rage and you want to murder somebody, or if you're in a depression and you want to kill yourself, or if you're so happy that you can cry,
It's all okay. There is tons of us out there, and that's why this page has been created, and that's why I've wanted to start doing these videos. And as nerve-wracking as they are for me sometimes, I'm gonna keep doing them. um and I'm really glad. It was actually, hi Riker, Bruce's cousin that voted on talking about trauma today, and I've been pretty nervous about it like all week because like I said, I have a lot of trauma myself that I'm still working on every day, and it gets me worked up, and it gets everyone worked up, but
you see that?
that's why I'm happy to be where I am and have the life that I have, and
What's up, dude?
the realizations, because life's beautiful, and
It gets so much better when you start letting yourself feel everything. Instead of fighting off the emotion, like when like a song reminds you of something great and you like start to well up or from some memory, like instead of fighting it off because it's like, oh, you get in this headspace of, for whatever reason, this emotion isn't appropriate to be feeling in this current setting. To hell with that. To hell with who cares. Like, just follow it. Your body's feeling it for a reason, so jump in there. Even if it's pain or something bad, something scary, if you get to know it and accept it because it's inside of you, you're feeling it. No, they're not making you feel that way. You're feeling that way because of what's going on. This is how you are interpreting it. And you can change the way you feel about it if you understand why you feel the certain way, and maybe just kind of disassociate that negative feeling towards that emotion. You can learn to enjoy every emotion equally, even the bad stuff. And then even when you're sad, it's just like, oh, man, yesterday was so much better. I look forward to growing
Wesley,
out of this.
Yes, he still loves me.
You still love her.
I don't know. Wesley is a friend of Bruce's, so I'm not sure. But
I'm a little confused, Wes.
if he's even still in here, I don't even know how to tell. But now I lost my train of thought, and that happens sometimes. Woo!
Gosh, you're so stupid.
Oh!
Why can't you keep thinking properly?
I'm really super proud of us. We haven't sworn this entire time. I'm impressed. That means I don't have to put a disclosure when I put it on YouTube. Anyhow, I love you.
I love you.
And I love all of you. Even if I don't know you, because I know that there's a lot of you that I don't.
We're all here playing the same. We're all here locked into the same simulation. So, we're all teammates and family in that sense. Go Planet Earth.
My mom just said an amazing thing, and she says, trying to stuff down our feelings is what often leads to different types of addictions.
Oh, yeah.
And that is so true. I've never actually thought of it that way, but thinking of it now, any addiction, whether it be porn, sex, drugs, alcohol,
Netflix and Hulu,
the TV screen,
any kind of excessive
social media.
If you're staring at a screen for more than 12 hours a day,
you have an addiction.
Anyways, it's an addiction of some kind. You may justify, I have work.
Those are escapes for us to not handle or deal with things. We're not living in the now. We're not experiencing. We're just existing.
We're observing what other people are doing in their now.
Yeah. And that's I've done that long enough. I mean, I've lived for other people for a long time, and I've finally started to live for myself, and it is the most beautiful experience. Wesley, I want to invite you just to make you answer what you mean.
Maybe he was just commenting. It could possibly be a comment on the fact that I don't really have a good track record with relationships.
Oh.
I don't know. That's a long shot. It feels like I'm probably off there, but
I mean, honestly, neither one of us have really been good with relationships. Relationships in the past. Because in the past, neither one of us were honest with ourselves, much less our partners.
Also, there was a little bit of, this person really thinks that they get me, but I can tell just by the way that they look at me that they don't really get me. So I'll just play this out as I see fit. And
I'm gonna use you for what I need.
Yep.
I'm gonna enjoy this ride.
There's just something different here, though.
This ride's gonna last a while.
She gets it. The look in the eyes is different.
So, buttons. It is, this has been a pretty long video, so unless any of you have something that you want to add, I'm going to end this so I can get it up on YouTube and we can do our haul at 8
p.m.
which is another amazing page if you guys haven't checked it out. It's called Go Outside and Howl at 8 p.m. And it's a very supportive group. There's a lot of diversity throughout it, and I really enjoy it. So
I got an idea for for a video here, like heavy metal music.
we could do that
Screaming, angry, heavy metal music, and what a lot of them are actually trying to say, but nobody pays attention because they can't get past the screaming.
They can't hear.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear it. They're not listening well enough.
Ugh.
Yeah, that'd be another one. So anyways, thank you guys. Love you so very much. Have a good night. Ooh, I wonder if we could get we could.
Say goodbye.
Good boys.
Good boys.
That's us saying goodbye. Mark, I will respond to you once we get off live, and I would love to talk to you more.
That was fun, huh?
We just had a random stranger comment. I was married for 42 years, and it failed 15 years after my daughter's suicide.